Mhm. I'm Junor Francis, and welcome to the History of LA Ska one-on-one sessions. This series celebrates the ska, rocksteady, and vintage reggae scenes in Southern California and beyond through insightful conversation with legends and modern-day players, including those behind the scenes. And as is usual, a lot of people are working behind the scenes. So I want to say thank you, whether you watch us on YouTube or listen as a podcast episode. Thanks for your support and your continued support. And please, at every given occasion, tell your friends to watch. Invite your friends and your relatives to. Our guests today are two accomplished musicians who started their career in the popular LA-based, the award-winning ska-Afro-Cuban jazz ensemble, Yeska. Did I say that right, sir?
Yeah, Yeska.
Nice. All right. So drummer percussionist David Fredo Ortiz and saxophonist and composer. No, wait a minute. Did I say David Ortiz?
Yeah,
I like my name, David Fredo Ortiz.
David Fredo.
That's my new.
Right. So your middle name is David.
No. So I'm Fredo Ortiz.
I know, but you said your middle.
My middle name is Rafael.
And your middle name, right?
Just call me Ralph.
And saxophonist and composer David. David, can you say your last name? So even though I've known you forever.
David Urquidi.
Urquidi. All right, sir. I want to welcome you both. You both are from Montebello.
I'm from Montebello.
I'm from Gardena, California.
Okay, yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Montebello means beautiful women. I did some research. No, I'm just kidding. Beautiful mountain. I think we can say that we don't get knocked out. And you're from Gardena, right?
That's right.
So my first question to you, gentlemen, tell us about your family background. I'm quite sure you have friends and relatives who want to know something about you. Your parents are alive. Let's start with David. Are your parents alive?
Just my father at this point. My mom passed away in 2003. So
but quite early, man.
Yeah, she was young. Yeah.
How old was she?
48.
Oh, still a baby.
Yeah. It's kind of a tragic thing, but
right.
So is life.
So you've been raising yourself with the help of good family members. You've done magnificently well. You went to UCLA.
I went to USC.
USC, that's close.
Yeah. But she saw me graduate.
Yeah,
school
man, nice.
And everything. So she was really supportive of me and my musical endeavors, and really the band. I mean, we used to practice at my house. And she was supportive. Yeah, she tolerated us because we were pretty bad in the beginning. I mean, we used to practice all the time and go till late at night, and she was really cool. And
So you did music in high school?
Yeah, I was in marching band with Fredo. We went to high school together, so we were in marching band together and like the school jazz band, and then started playing in bands outside of school and kind of went into got heavy into music. And I actually went to college as an engineering student because we went to an engineering high school, both me and Fredo. And we ended up being musicians, which is kind of funny. So I ended up going to the school of music once I was already at USC, and then I graduated from there.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one older brother and one younger sister.
How your dad and your family feels about your accomplishment, your musical accomplishment?
They're really happy. They're very proud of me. They've always been really supportive, and I definitely could not have done it without them and their support, and it's been good.
Especially with the loss of your mom at such a young age. So Frida, how about you, sir?
From Gardena, California. My parents bought this house that I'm in, this garage, in 1973. I don't know, like 20 grand or something like that. And I'm still living here with my daughter and her mom. And my parents are not around anymore. My dad passed in 2010 and my mom in 2015. My daughter was born in 2015, same year my mom passed.
One generation out and one comes in.
Yeah. I saw that as the give and take of life.
Brothers and sisters?
I had one older half brother who's no longer with us, and he was a Hammond organ player, so he was a musician. So I used to go watch him play with the Chicano wedding bands in the city of LA and Compton and all around. And I'd sit behind the drummer. So I guess I was getting that exposure at a young age. You know, watching him load up a Leslie and a B3 in the back of a pickup truck.
Mm.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And I at this point I would never try to separate you guys, especially since you guys been together since high school.
Yeah.
In addition to playing in the bands together.
Yeah, I actually knew David's older brother. We were the same year in high school, and he was bragging about his brother. He's like, "My brother's going to come in and kick some butt, man." I was like, "All right, let's check your brother out." You know?
Yeah, because I met Fredo through my brother before I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a year younger than him, so I met him when I was.
I would go to your house, right, and just go kick it. And
so at one point you lived in Montebello.
Me, no. So my mother was my bus to school, and since since kindergarten, she was a teacher and she worked in the El Rancho school district in Pico Rivera and that part of LA. So she would drive to work, so she was my bus. She'd drop me off. We used somebody else's address, and so I didn't know what it was living in Gardena, going to school around here. I just knew my friends around my block, and then the rest of my friends were 30 miles east.
Right. Well, since you're talking, Fredo, at what point in your life did you pick up first musical instrument?
Man, I mean, my dad had an acoustic guitar in the house, and we had a piano. So I guess I was already kind of pulling on strings and tickling ivories, you know, at a young age. I don't know when drums came into play, but my uncle, who was on my dad's side, who was a saxophone player in the Army, he bought me my first Toys R Us drum set. And it was made of paper, so it lasted me about a week. And I think that's when my parents kind of figured that I might mean business.
How about you, David?
I started playing sax when I was 10 in the school band. You know, I was in 5th grade. And I've always loved the saxophone since I was a kid. My grandfather was into jazz music. So I grew up listening to jazz and saxophone players. And I always loved the sound of it. And so when band came around, you know, you can choose the class, and I wanted to be in band, and I said, you know, I want to play saxophone.
So you never tried the trombone, you never tried playing the piano?
Piano a little bit. My aunt had a piano, and so when we'd go to visit her house, you know, I played a little bit, kind of for fun, you know, nothing serious. I never took lessons or anything, you know, just kind of would tinkle around on it. You know, I would try to read the music because I learned how to read music with saxophone, so I would, you know, try to pick out melodies and stuff. And
is there a difference when you learn with saxophone as opposed to learn with drum or perhaps trombone? You know, Dan Drummond is always in my head, but when I think music,
reading music a little bit, because saxophone is in what they call treble clef, so it's a little higher, and like say trombone is in what they call bass clef, which is a lower pitch, and piano has both clefs. So, yeah, I just kind of stuck to the treble clef side because that's what I could read. And when she had books, and I would try to, you know, pick out the melodies. But, you know, mainly it was sax. I mean, I was just really into saxophone, you know.
Let's talk about Yeska. You both worked with Yeska for a significant number of years. Tell us about the formation. Were you there from the onset, the very beginning?
Yeah. Well, I was. Fredo came in later. The story of Yeska is that they had, at our high school, they had a talent show. And myself and a couple other friends kind of put a band together to be in the talent show. And at this point, I had never listened to ska music at all. The bass player and the drummer said, let's play Mirror in the Bathroom from English Beat. And also This Is Ska from Bad Manners. And that was the first time I ever heard ska. You know, I was into all kinds of other music before that. And so, you know, we said, okay, and we started practicing. We used to practice every week. The drummer's dad was also like a drummer. He had a band, so we could practice at his house. And, you know, we needed a name, and I came up with the name Yeska from watching a Cheech and Chong movie. There's that scene where the van is driving away, and the back says Yeska, but with a C. And so I said, that's the name, Yeska, but with a K for ska music.
And what's the spelling that you saw?
Yeska.
Ah.
It was on the license plate of the...
because I just read tonight, you know, in preparing for the the interview that Yeska means ganja, where's American word. I mean, yeah, that's English word. Means weed.
Yeah, it's
Marijuana.
like slang. Like it's like a Mexican slang.
Ah, so that's not where the name came from, because you look so straight like you never touched. You don't even know what weed is.
Actually, I've never done it, but seriously, but I'm not a smoker. But
Well, you know, it's
we wanted a name.
No one cares.
Yeah, I mean,
anymore.
no, but seriously, I'm telling the truth.
Mhm.
But so, like, we wanted a name with ska in it, and so when I saw, you know, there's a bunch of bands with the name ska, you know, Skatalites, you know, stuff like that. So when I saw that word, I said we just changed the C to a K, and we were all Mexican kids, and we thought it was funny, you know, and the name just kind of stuck, and that was the name. So we played the talent show, and Fredo was in another band in the talent show, called the Villains, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and then Yeska ended up winning the talent show.
Yeah.
And then after that, we kind of would practice every now and then, and we tried to learn songs. And then, and then some people stayed, and then we changed a few members. You know, we were so young. I mean, I was like, I think 14 when that happened. And so that's when we started the band. I mean, I was 14. And then Fredo came in a couple years later, right?
Yeah. I would just come to your house to kick it, but then all of a sudden I would come with Walter and then just watch you guys rehearse. And I don't remember how it led to that, but one day you were like, "Hey, you got..." Oh, we were all making a big deal over Anton's woodblock. We're like, "He's got percussion." We're like, "Oh man," blowing our minds. We're like, "Percussion," you know. And they're like, "Don't you have timbales at your house?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're sitting under the bed." Like, bring them to next rehearsal. Like, check it out. That kind of. I was like, all right. I was just into playing music, and I was a part of that. The band that came out of the punk band that I was in at the high school. We also continued playing outside of high school, you know, as well as Yeska. But then I would come to Yeska rehearsals, and then somehow, you know.
Yeah, because we were all friends in high school, like in the marching band. So that's kind of, I mean, we would see each other like all the time, even though we were in
for the
different
record,
bands.
can you say what high school? Because you guys are both accomplished musicians, and you're the pride and joy of your school. So I think you should say the name of the school, and hopefully we can use this to inspire some youngsters, you know, to do more than play music and computer, you know, play with real instruments. I'm not in computer, but
that was Don Bosco Technical Institute.
But that's not the place you guys are.
That's the name of the high school. It was in Rosemead.
Right, yeah.
It was like an engineering high school, you know.
College
for middle class kids. Rich kids are middle.
I tried to fail the entry exam because I didn't want to go to a private Catholic school, because I had only gone to public school.
Deliberate, or are you joking?
What's that?
Are you joking, or are you serious?
No, I'm serious. I had gone to public school up until high school, and then we had the Scantrons, which had the little bubbles, A, B, and C, and I think I filled in all the C's all the way down. I wanted to sabotage the fact that I was going to get accepted to the school, and you know, they probably saw that we can afford the monthly tuition and said, "Yeah, let him in."
Nice.
You know?
Right. No regret. No, right? No regret.
No, it's a great school. I mean, we all...
Yes, man.
You know, a lot of knuckleheads, but a lot of us knuckleheads, you know, made it out, you know, with a good education and good heads on our shoulders. And I mean, I just recently saw somebody from my year who was the principal of Garfield High School, and his school band, the mariachi band, opened up for Los Lobos the other day, you know. But that was, you know, I was sitting down, the guy looked at me, he's like, "Fredo?" I'm like, "Andres?" He's like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "I'm the principal." I was like, "Oh man," like kind of blew my mind, you know, like to see your peers, you know, succeed, you know, in many good ways, you know.
Yeah, and I guess the feeling really mutual. He's also proud of you. See you on stage.
Well, they've all watched our career. Those of us that were ended up being musicians, you know, and doing, you know, like Dave did a lot of big things, and I had my own path, and you know, they were seeing us, and of course, like through social media, you know, they were watching us kind of grow, you know, through the years.
David, we rudely step on you. You were going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, I'm glad I went to that high school. I mean, I wouldn't have met all the guys that I did and friends, and that's how I kind of got into music, was being in that high school.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, definitely glad I went there. It was a great school. It was really good, like college prep, prepared me for college, and yeah.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Tell us about the core members of Yeska when it first formed. What year was that now? Year for the sake of
92.
92. And what's the name of the high school again?
Don Bosco Technical Institute.
There you go. They're Don Bosco? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
so at that time,
in existence, right?
What's that?
The school is still in existence.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's still there. It's an all-boys Catholic
producing great musicians who are inclined to play ska, rocksteady, and reggae. You laugh.
I mean, like,
I wonder if we're like the only generation of that.
That would be extremely sad.
Actually came out of, you know, that bands and musicians that came out of that school. Because
well, you guys have to blame yourself for not going back to recruit musicians to follow in your footsteps and carry on. Yeah. But it's not too late.
I went back. A friend of mine asked me to go back, and he did an interview with me in front of the kids in the band room. My friend Mike Sandoval, like, he just went in and did it. So it was a trip to walk back into that band room, you know, and then see all these pimple-faced kids, you know.
Because me and Fredo were like the jokesters kind of the band in the marching band, and we used to get each other in trouble, making each other laugh. We had to be in tight formation, and then, you know, the band director would be telling something to Fredo because he was talking, and then I would turn around and make funny faces, and we used to get in trouble all the time.
I'm not even gonna say it.
Yeah, but so we used to mess around a lot, you know. And so at that time, like, another guy in the drum line was the original drummer, and then the tuba player, Ray Diaz, the tuba player in the band, in the school marching band, was the bass player, which is Pablo Tovar, who went on to make another band later called Big Dog Small Fence, who was kind of in the ska scene for a little bit. And then I'm trying to think who else was it. Daniel Lopez was the original trombone player.
Leonard,
right?
Leonard played keyboard.
Leonard Mabasa, right? Yeah. He played keyboards. And then wow, so long ago. I mean, I think that's everybody. But most of everybody didn't continue in music. You know, they went into their own careers and did whatever else they did.
And they all continued in music.
No, they did not.
Oh, they did not. Oh.
No. Because as we got older, a lot of the people who were kind of in the band, like the trombone player went to the Army, you know, so we didn't see him for years. And then the original drummer, you know, he was like working full time. He went to, because our high school had a 5-year program and a 4-year program. So you can go to high school, like a regular high school, or you can do 5 years and then you go in the college track. So like he ended up like staying 5 years and then straight into working after that. And, you know, so we kind of, everyone started going their separate ways, you know. And then, so my senior year, Fredo was already out of the high school. The piano player at the time, who was Walter Miranda, he was playing trumpet in the high school band, but he also played piano. But he actually was playing drums at the time in the band. So we were everybody was switching instruments, you know. We needed a drummer. He says, I can kind of play drums. So he played drums. He was the trumpet player in the high school band. So he played drums, and then he recruited. He graduated. He was like 3 years ahead of me, I think. So he went to Pasadena City College and met other musicians. So that's when he got more musicians into the band who were way above kind of my level. You know, I was like a high school kid, and these guys, you know, they went to like the LA County High School of the Arts, you know, which was Ulises Bella, which was the saxophone player, the other saxophone player in the band. He played tenor sax. I played alto sax. Seth Zwirling, which was the trumpet player, he also came from that school, and they met him at Pasadena City College. Trying to think who else came from there.
Crunchy?
Yeah.
Crunchy
went to Crunchy.
Was he Loxo or was he Hamilton?
Yeah, I think he might have went to Hamilton. Jose Espinosa, who later went and joined Ozomatli later on. Same with Ulises Bella, which is this other tenor player. He ended up moving out to Ozomatli as well. Kind of Yeska and Ozomatli kind of almost had the same members for a while. Everybody was going in and out of the band, and Yeska had so many members coming in and out of the band. It's kind of hard to keep track because we're all so young, and one guy goes to college, one guy gets a job, one guy doesn't want to play too much anymore. They're not really into music, and those who were kind of serious about music stuck in the band in a way, or ended up in other bands.
Right.
So that was kind of the formation of it.
Formation. So how many in the core? About 8 people. Did I count 8?
Yeah, there was already 8. There was
8.
always at least 8. There were other times where there were more people. We had more brass players. I think sometimes it was maybe 10 people on stage. Some of our earliest gigs at the Hong Kong Cafe with the Steady Beat shows, we had a lot of people on stage because that's when we had more horn players, and then
that big band satellite sound, eh?
Yeah, it was a lot of players. There was trumpet, trombone, myself, and 2 other saxophone players. So it was like 3 saxes, trumpet, trombone. So it's like 5 horns, drums, percussion, piano, guitar. Drums. Did I say drums?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, of course, you got to have drum. The timekeeping.
Bass. Yeah.
Timekeeping is right. Timekeeping is important. So why you choose Latin ska as opposed to straight ska, like Scatterlight? Or you could have gone the way, punk, but you choose to go.
It kind of ended up that way, not just kind of organically. I mean, I don't think we said, let's make a Latin ska band, right? Because in the beginning,
it had a lot to do with all those guys going to PCC and taking jazz classes and kind of learning that style. I mean, that's how it trickled down to me. I was learning the knowledge of jazz through all of you guys, and all of us were just kind of absorbing it. And I think we kind of, like, in our homes, maybe my dad would always play Alma del Barrio on the weekends, so I grew up listening to Eddie Palmieri and all that stuff. So when you asked me to play timbales, I kind of had an idea of what that drum did, even though I just wanted to play drum set, but my dad had bought me congas and timbales, so it's like, so a lot of that was, I think a lot of us had that kind of draw to the Latin stuff. But yeah, that influence of jazz was coming from that PCC.
Yeah, and like and the Latin thing, like he said, because when Fredo joined, he brought all those percussion instruments. So we I had listened to Latin music growing up too, but I didn't really know how it worked. I don't think any of us really knew how it worked, how it functioned, like within a band, and like exactly what to play and what all the instruments did together to make it happen. So I think we kind of just started learning about it all together, and what worked. And like, I think I was really the only guy at that point that was really into ska music, because, I got into it when I was about 14. So by my senior year, I was like heavy into like traditional ska, the Scatterlights, and all the Jamaican ska. I kind of got out of the two-tone stuff. And so I would bring songs in and I would say, hey, we should do a cover of this song. Let's play this song. We weren't writing too much yet. And then so we kind of tried to put our own twist on it because Fredo had all the Latin percussion stuff. And then so that's how that element came in. So it kind of became Latin ska. And then we ended up trying to put like montuno rhythms, which is like the Latin piano sounds, onto the songs as well. And that really made it more, Afro-Cuban. So then it kind of started becoming this thing where it was like our own sound.
Right.
As opposed to like we're just playing covers, because as we started writing songs, we were writing it kind of for the instrumentation that we had and like the sound, the kind of the things that we were getting into. Later on, like I really got into Latin jazz and started playing with a lot of like salsa bands in town, and I just got really heavy into it, and so I would say we should check this style out, let's try to mix that with this, and like I would write a song mixing certain rhythms with it, and let's try this rhythm, and so that's kind of how the Latin ska thing happened. It was kind of an organic thing.
So Frida, what was the scene? I'm going to ask you about the question, but start with you. What was the LA scene like at the time when you came in to?
I mean, out of high school.
Out of high school.
Out of high school, like with the band that I graduated with the Villains, like we had started playing backyard parties, in the city of Whittier, Alhambra, which eventually Yeska did too. We were almost doing the same parties at one point. But that was my exposure. I mean, the being on stage at the talent show, that was my first exposure, and and I think I mean, yeah, it just every year, every month, it just something new was introduced, and a new situation, a new band, or a new sound, or
Mhm.
a new instrument, was being introduced. And just like with Yeska, I'm just hanging out, and then all of a sudden, hey, come play percussion. All of a sudden, my mind is now focused on percussion, thanks to my dad who bought these instruments. If he didn't buy them, I wouldn't have been immersed in that style of music. So the scene, I mean, we were kids, so we were discovering it until we started getting gigs. And I remember one backyard party in Montebello that we played that one porch, that slim, and it was kind of like one of our first gigs.
Yeah.
At least, yeah,
I know about what time? What time period?
Oh man, I don't even remember, but
We played so
93?
many backyard parties. I mean, apart from the ska scene that we started playing, because we wanted to play all the time. So there was only so many ska shows
Right.
around, and then not to mention that we could get on because, promoters don't want to have the same bands on every show, right? So it's not like we can play every ska show.
Mhm.
I mean, I had gotten into the scene around '92. I started going to the ska shows and stuff with some of the other friends in like the bass player in the band, Pablo. We would go to ska shows all the time, and I got really into it. But like, there wasn't enough for us in the sense like we wanted to keep playing, so we got into like the East LA like backyard party scene, which was a whole thing back then in the '90s. That we were playing a couple times a week.
Lot of practice. Getting a lot of
Yeah,
practice.
yeah. So we were practicing every week. We would have a day that we would practice as a group. I don't remember what day of the week. It was like a school night. I remember that because my mom would say, "Hey, it's a school night. It's enough," and we'd have to, not make so much racket during our breaks and screaming and joking around and saying bad words and stuff like that. And so we would practice once a week, and then we would do a couple shows, on the weekends. Sometimes we had more than one in a day, and we were pretty busy. I mean, especially for being kids, we were gigging
Yes.
a lot. We were gigging a lot, so we got a lot of stage time, or party time, I guess, because we were playing a bunch of parties. And then there was like this whole like underground scene too that we kind of got into. Like people would like rent a warehouse or something, and they would
lofts,
lofts,
downtown.
warehouses downtown, and there was that scene, and we were kind of in that scene too, and we were just trying to get into as many situations as possible because we loved music and we liked playing so much.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how we fit in the whole
Right. So,
scene.
Frida, early in your career, the opportunity of a lifetime came when you got to play with the Beastie Boys. Share some of that knowledge with us.
That
And
was
when did that happen?
I met Money Mark at a coffee shop. It was called the Nova Express Cafe across from Canners in Fairfax.
What city?
It was a cafe, and I was playing with the
Where?
Villains.
What city?
In what's that? North Hollywood,
The
West
Fairfax
Hollywood?
district, right?
Mhm.
Fairfax.
Fairfax.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Cantor's Diner. Cantor's.
Yes.
So right across the street there was a cafe called the Nova Express Cafe,
Mhm.
and it was just another gig for me, and somebody from a band that played after me had mentioned to Money Mark, the keyboardist of the Beastie Boys, that I had played percussion, because now by that time Yeska had played so much around town that they didn't see me as a drum set player, they saw me as a percussionist. They're like, oh, that's the percussionist guy, he plays timbales, he plays congas. And I was still learning, I was still green, but I was earning my stripes, so to speak, and bruising my hands, and
Mhm.
until I finally learned how to play. But that was the moment of meeting somebody at the right place at the right time. Their
Right.
percussionist had left to another band and left the position open, and they left it to Money Mark to find the guy. And then maybe it was easy enough for him to be like, yeah, talk to that guy. And I'm like, I didn't even know who he was. I was like, why is this guy bothering me? I just want to put my drums away. I got beer in the car. Like, I just want to, because they didn't sell beer at this cafe. It was a
Right, so
cafe.
you had to bring your own.
But he wanted to help me with my
You know,
drums. But he was pretty persistent, and like, he was like, hey man, give me your number. I got a gig for you. I'm gonna play downtown at this place called $50. And $50 was a place that Yeska used to play
Yeah, we used to
frequently.
play there all the time. Yeah.
And so it's like, through Yeska, I met a lot of people in that whole scene, and the rock en español scene, the Chicano scene, just the whole LA, and but now I'm meeting Money Mark, and it turns out that he is also from Gardena, California. So that was a cool connection, and he called me. I played a gig with him, and I told him that I was going to bring my drum set, and he's like, "No, bring your congas." And I had like kind of like the first starter series of congas that LP made, and like the heads eventually start withering away and peeling apart, because they're not real calfskin heads, which I had to learn later on to buy. But I took those, I played, and he invited Mike D and MCA to the show, and they saw me play and said, "Yeah, sounds good. We leave out of the country in a couple months. Do you have a passport?" I said, "What's a passport?"
All right.
And they're like,
Where's
"Oh,
LAX?
I hadn't been out of LA, man. I don't think Yeska had even. Maybe we've driven up to San Francisco by then, or down to San Diego. Well, San Diego for sure, because we used to take those steady beat trips to the World Beat Center,
The World Beat Center.
So that was tour for me, But now I jumped, to playing for the Beasties, which I was a fan of. I saw them when I was 13, 14 years old at the Greek Theater with Run DMC. And then I also followed them as they put records out as I was in high school. And that was probably like 92, 93, 94.
Right. So you work with them, I think, from the research from 1996 to about 2009.
So yeah, my first tour that was a month long was in Australia, and that was in 96, January of 96.
An entire month in Australia?
It was probably about like 3 weeks in Australia, and then we did another 2 weeks in like Eastern Asia. So I got to see, Indonesia and Thailand and Japan, China. I'm 20 years old. Like I didn't know what to expect, but I got thrown into the pool to swim, man, and it's pretty awesome. But then after all that was done, I came back home, and it was back to my regular program, which was Yeska gigs, and I mean at the time they had to find somebody to replace me, and I don't think we've been replacing horn players, but I think that was the first time that they had to replace like a drummer, a percussionist. It's like
yeah, because by that time you had moved over to the drum set.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because the other drummer wasn't working out, and so Fredo moved over to drum set, and then I think we added different percussionists. Yeah. So when Fredo left, I mean, first we were amazed. We're like, we can't believe it. Fredo got the gig with the Beastie Boys. That's awesome.
For the opportunity, everybody was.
Yeah, I mean, we were happy for him. I mean, it was awesome, to see, you're coming up together playing music, and like one of your friends gets this huge gig. I mean, it was pretty awesome. And then so when he left, we're like, okay, well, what do we do now? We don't have a drummer. So we used other drummers around town and stuff like that, from different bands that we kind of knew. And yeah.
So Fredo, what are some of the highlights of working with the Beastie Boys? Besides lots of girls. Oh, yeah, family now.
And the reality of that is like I came to party, and the funny thing is that after the show was done, we went to the hotel, and everybody went to their rooms and went to bed. And I was like, "Where are we going? Are we going out?" They're like, "Nah, man, get some sleep, man. We'll see you tomorrow."
Oh, they were that strict and disciplined?
Well, they were in their mid 30s, and I think over that hump, of like starting families and like kind of like I can now understand that at that age you want to like start changing things in your life.
Sorry, they disappointed you, but
no, it was an amazing thing, because I mean at that level of touring, the money that backs up that whole production. I mean, there's 20 to 30 people in the whole production plus the band, and but the greatest thing is that it wasn't them three against everybody else. They included everybody. They considered it a family, and they welcomed me and supported me and encouraged me, because I think they knew that I was that young. I was 20 years old, so hadn't even turned 21 yet, you know. But I mean, yeah, it was pretty much the best experience. I mean, being able to see the world like open up my eyes at that point. You know, it's like, okay, I mean,
And
young
getting paid. You
and
know,
getting
the
paid. Yeah,
ambassador.
exactly. I was getting a check coming home. I should have saved all that money. Instead, I came back home and bought everybody a drink.
Yeah. So David, let's talk about the breaking up of Yeska. When did that happen, and why? A two-part question: when and why?
I think it was around 2000, 2001. More like 2001.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, Fredo had not played with the band anymore for a couple years. Like I said, when we started, we were so young, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as anybody when they're young, we were teenagers, and people start growing apart. We started becoming men. We started becoming into our mid-20s, and people were going to school and some people were getting jobs and had responsibilities. So we started kind of changing as people, for one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there was some differences as far as like what we wanted to do. Like I was really serious about music and being a musician. Like that's what I wanted to do 100%. But other people weren't in that same mind frame either. Some were, but some weren't. Some were there more kind of as a fun thing to party, to just hang out, just something to do that was fun, as far as not so much being really serious into music and the band and serious about their instruments per se. Not that people were slackers or anything like that, but I think it's just a different mindset.
Different priorities. People were putting their priorities in.
Right.
Where Dave, like, I would say, when I say this about Dave, was like he was managing the band. He was the one that was like, okay, I'm holding this thing together. Even though we're all there to perform, but we were, yeah, like you said, like we were enjoying ourselves and not really, we didn't understand the business, and he was learning the business. He was going to school for that too, so it's like everybody was in a different mindset, and
you guys got to have fun. I was working the whole time. I was getting paid and dealing with promoters and the clubs and all that kind of stuff. But so what ended up happening too was that I was getting into different scenes too, and I was playing with a whole different set of musicians.
Yes.
And kind of the level of players that I was starting to play with, I kind of wanted to be around that kind of mindset because they were well above me. And I wanted to improve myself and get more into those scenes because I was learning a lot, and I was kind of like, there's only so far I felt like I can go personally as being a leader of my own group, like my own band. And I wanted to play other music. I wanted to write other music because by this point I was kind of like writing most of the music. The piano player wrote some of the music too. But it was kind of the thing where I kind of felt like it was almost as far as I could take it musically. Like I wanted to play more Latin jazz and more of that kind of thing and straight ahead jazz and stuff like that. And Yeska wasn't really the place to do it, I guess you can say. And, also there were some like business things that were going on that, I was handling all the business stuff, like I said. And that I was just kind of tired of dealing with it. I guess you can say, it gets kind of stressful. It's a lot of time that I was putting in every day on the phone and talking to our manager and the agent and all that kind of stuff. And where it was going, I just didn't want to do it anymore, and there was a couple incidents that happened, and I just told everybody, you know what? I think this is the end of the band.
Mm-hmm.
Fredo had already been out for like 3 years or something, 2 years.
Like that,
yeah. And not that the lineup we had wasn't good or anything, because we had some great times, but it was just that I kind of wanted to do different things. And Yeska also went to a point where we started doing our own touring. We got in the jazz festival circuit. We went to Europe. Fredo did those trips. We went to Montreux Jazz Festival in '99. Went to Pori Jazz Festival in Finland. We went to Cancun Jazz Festival. After Fredo, we went to Montreal Jazz Festival, that was I think the biggest show that Yeska played. I mean, it was just thousands and thousands of people in the street of Montreal. It was amazing, you know. And so yeah, I kind of wanted to get into different music, and it was hard keeping a band together and playing these other gigs that I was playing, and trying to go where I wanted to go with still having a band in a way.
Right.
You know, so I just decided to end the group. You know?
So what is your proudest moments being a member of Yeska before its demise?
The proudest moment of the band?
No, your personal.
Oh. I'd say doing those jazz festivals. I mean, I think the first time when we went as a band to Europe, you know, we played the Montreux Jazz Festival. And for me, that was a huge deal. I mean, because...
It was a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I had always, you know, I was into jazz, and the Montreux Jazz Festival is like the pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
And when we got that gig, I mean, I couldn't believe it. You know, I hadn't been to Europe. I hadn't been over there ever in my life. And then, you know, here I am with our own band, and I'm going to Montreux, you know, and it was like an incredible feeling. And then I'm looking at the roster of who else is playing, and it was amazing because they were like all like these guys that were my heroes, and like we're on the same billing, and next door there's so and so, and you know, that same trip we went to Finland, and like Dave Sanborn played right before us, and like these huge acts, you know, huge artists. And for me, like that was a really big accomplishment, that I thought that you know, the band got to that level, you know. But even at that point, I think there was still some things that, you know, I kind of wanted the band to be in that scene, I guess you can say, and be in those circuits and those circles, where I don't think everybody at the time was really that into that either. You know?
I think we would, for me, we were just we were following the path, right, and wherever it would take us. I mean, for me, it would be the time that we opened up for Tito Puente and Celia Cruz, and so this was actually now at a time where we were being taken. Our music was taking us into this path, and not that we were being taken away from the ska scene, but we weren't doing that many ska shows anymore. Like we were doing these big jazz festivals, so we were now being looked at, you know, as quote unquote jazz band or Latin jazz band or something, which was awesome. But I yeah, and like many people, like we were just doing it because it was happening. But a lot of people, like, where was everybody's like heart invested? But I think the investment was that we all got to play together and do what we do, you know, and go to see these places and go, you know, leave LA, you know, and and get to perform. And I mean, that for me, that was the biggest thing. I mean, the Beastie Boys was one thing, but I think I've always said to myself that I always wanted to do it with my friends, you know. All the hard work that I did, you know, from being young on up, was like, man, I wish I could be here with the guys that I laugh with, you know, and crack jokes with. And
so any memorable moments with your friends from Yeska, memorable moments that you can share with us.
You know,
memorable moments, I'm asking.
Oh, memorable moments?
Yeah, with your homies being a member of Yeska, not Beastie Boys.
Yeah,
so many.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, that's what I'm getting at. It's like my memorable moment was one that we opened up a show. It's a funny story. We were supposed to play on the main stage, but they put us out in front of the Universal Amphitheater for this one show. But it ended up being the best idea because they didn't let any of the audience into the auditorium yet. So there was like thousands of people
right
out in front, and we're on these crates, you know, out in front, stuffed all tight, you know, all 8, 9, 10 members but everybody dug it. Everybody, like, you know, everybody was
dancing,
you know,
and stuff. Yeah.
You know, so it was like the best exposure that we could have had. You know,
by default.
By default, you know, we're like, well, we want to be on the main stage, man. No, you guys can play out in front in a couple of boxes. You know? Yeah. That was pretty, like.
Yes, amazing.
But I think like all those experiences with Yeska really helped me later in life. And like we used to record a lot. A lot of those recordings were never really released, but we would record, I say, every couple months. There was a studio we would go out in West LA, and you know, we would all use, like, we would get paid from a gig and say, let's go record. And we would just go into the studio.
Everyone invested.
Right. All of us together, and we would just record. Like, we would record the whole set, all our songs that we had, we would just record them. Mm-hmm. And then a couple months later, we would go in and we would record again. And so, like, that was really good practice, because it's not like so much now where people record individually. You know, we always wanted to record all together and kind of be on that.
And what has become of those recordings?
Well, some of them got released, you know, like El Mocoso on the Ska Authentic. Some of them became what our first 7-inch that we did, Greyhound to Chiapas. And then that prepared us for when we did our first album, Ska-Afro-Cuban Jazz. We had already recorded as a band so many times, and we were used to doing it. So it was a lot easier to do it as a band, you know, when we recorded our first full-length record. You know, because we recorded it really fast. I mean, we didn't have that, like, a big budget from the company that we were with. They were kind of like a small independent. And I think they gave us 2 days of tracking and 2 days of mixing or something like that, right? I don't remember. Yeah, so we had 2 days to record the record. So we said, okay, we're going in, a couple takes, and that's all we get. So it was kind of like we came in, we had to get down to business. And so that really helped us in that situation, because we were so tight. We had played before and we had recorded before, and like being able to get all that experience when we were young, I think for me it helped me now, because that's a big part of what I do is recording sessions. Like I got a lot of experience as a teenager when, like, it mattered, but it didn't matter as much as, like, when you're a pro. You know, we were just kind of doing it for fun. You know, we just had so much experience doing it by that time.
And a lot of bands don't get that experience either. I mean, that we had. So, and I think because, you know, we were at the level of that we were as young men, you know, people saw that in us, so we were able to, like, we'd go in there thinking, oh yeah, cool studio, but then, like, you know, underneath it all, it's like, man, I'm learning how to tune my drums. I'm learning how, you know, to do stuff in 1 to 2 takes. You know, where now that I ended up doing, you know, later on, Beastie Boys and beyond, it's like I started getting more sessions and, like, oh, percussion, bring your tambourine, bring this. I was like, I had an idea of what I needed to do. So that, yeah, for sure, that, like Dave said, it was
nice.
Good preparation for the future.
Yeah. So David, you had the enormous opportunity to meet a couple of people. Let's start with Poncho Sanchez. How that happened? Larger than life figure, right?
Yeah, that was like my first touring gig, like, outside of Yeska. Like, that was like my first gig, like real gig that I got with an artist outside of my own band, you know, like outside of us, you know. And that came about because when I was 18, I used to play at this place in East LA. Like, it was my first steady gig, this bar. It was like a small little jazz group that played, like, Latin jazz and straight ahead. And I used to play with them on Thursdays, I think, in East LA. And the club owner booked Poncho Sanchez to play one Friday night.
In that small place?
In that small place, right. And so I wanted to go check him out, because I love Poncho Sanchez's music, and I used to listen to his records and stuff. And so I wasn't even 21 yet. So I asked the club owner, can I come? And he's like, okay, well, the band I was playing with was going to open up. Right, so I brought my instrument. I actually didn't even play that night. I just brought my instrument so I can get in there, because I wasn't 21 yet, and he let me in, and then I was able to see Poncho play. And I met the piano player at the time, the musical director, David Torres, and I started taking lessons with him, like arranging and writing lessons, because I really loved the sound that he got with that band. And it was like a similar instrumentation, because he had 3 horns. Yeska had 3 horns. And that sound that he would get, I wanted to learn how to do that so I can write, like, horn arrangements for Yeska. And so I started taking lessons with him. And so I would bring in, like, charts I did for Yeska and, like, stuff I was doing at the time when I was in school. And we became friends. And then a couple years down the road, one of my best friends, a trumpet player that I was going to school with, well, after we graduated, his name is Serafin Ayulat, he got the gig playing trumpet. So I started going to gigs and hanging out, because like it was like one of my best friends got the gig, and same thing, like when Fredo got this gig, it was like, man, you got this great gig, like this is awesome, you know. And so I was hanging out and I met Poncho, and then like I sat in once or twice, you know. And then one day I was at David Torres' house, the piano player, and he says, do you play Barry, like baritone saxophone? I said, yeah, I do. I actually started on Barry. And he says, yeah, you know, we record Barry in the studio, but I always wanted to have a Barry live in the band. And he's like, how would you feel about playing? I'm like, that sounds great. Yeah. And he says, yeah, we have some gigs coming up in the summer, you know, that maybe we can add you on some gigs. I'm going to talk to Poncho about it. I said, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm in. You know, just let me know when, whatever I got, I'm clearing the schedule. I'm in. You know, it was like Poncho Sanchez. I couldn't believe it, you know. And then so, yeah, he gave me a day. You know, my first gig was like charts, like music to read for all the songs, my own parts for the band that I was going to play. And then so I did the gig, and Poncho loved the sound of the baritone because it was 4 horns now. And like the baritone saxophone in Latin music is like this whole sound that, you know, in like old mambo records and kind of stuff like that, that it adds a lot. And he loved it. And he says, yeah, I want you to keep playing in the band. Well, he says, you got a month probation. He says, if I'm going to give you these dates, but then he says, oh, we're going to Japan, but we already booked the tickets, so you can't go. I was like, oh man, like I missed it, like, you know, by a month, right? So he says, but we get back, we got all these dates. You're on these dates for this month. If you do good, then I'll give you the gig. I said, okay. So that month passed. At the end of the month, he called me. He says, you know, you got the gig, you're in the band. And that led to like around 3 years or so with the band. And I went all around the world with them and played all these jazz festivals and met all these jazz musicians that, like, again, were my heroes. And playing with Poncho, who I loved his music. And I was a big learning experience for me.
I bet.
Touring at and playing that music that I love so much and at that level, while traveling and doing all that kind of stuff, it was really good for me. You know, I learned.
You also work extensive with War, right? I think you went on a tour with War.
Yeah, well, I stopped playing with Poncho in around 2005, and then a couple years later, I started playing with Lonnie Jordan, who's the founder of the band. He's the keyboard player, vocalist of War. He had a jazz quartet. In 2007, he had done a solo record, so I knew the bass player that was in the band. And then, so after the record came out, they were going to do like some shows in town. So they called me for that. And then, you know, we got along really well, and Lonnie liked my playing. And then, so I was playing in his quartet, which he called the Wartet at the time. And it was a 4-piece band. It was saxophone, Lonnie, drums, and bass. So it was basically, you know, the guys in War, the drummer, bass player, and Lonnie from War, and then me.
Yeska.
And then, yeah, but Yeska, I already stopped Yeska by that time. You know, like, so Yeska, I had stopped, like, I think, like I said,
I don't want to throw
2001, like 2001, and then I started doing Punch in like 2003 or so. And then, anyway, so around 2007, I was playing with Lonnie Jordan, and then, you know, we went to Japan, and we did like a tour out there, and, you know, we did some other stuff in town, and some other short trips, and it was really cool, you know, because I had grown up listening to War since I was a kid.
Of course.
You know, I remember being, you know, my mom had this cool record collection, which I still have, and being like 5 years old looking at a War record, you know, and then here I was, I'm playing with this guy. Like, yeah, I'm playing with Lonnie Jordan.
Your mom must have been extremely proud.
Well, she had already passed by that point, but
okay.
She didn't get to see that. But yeah, I was definitely like, it was a weird experience, and I was thinking about her like when I first started playing with him. So then, you know, I played with Lonnie Jordan off and on throughout the times when he was in town. He would do shows, and then a couple years later is when he asked me to join the band, you know, and he just called me up one day and he says, "Hey, you want to play in War?" I said, "Yeah, of course." And he says, "Okay," it was like a Monday or a Tuesday. He says, "Okay, cool. The gig is on Thursday." I'm like, "Is there a rehearsal?" He says, "No." He says, "Here's where the gig is." I said, "So what are we gonna play?" He says, "War's Greatest Hits. I'll see you at the gig." And he hangs up. I was like, Oh man, so I called my friend, the bass player, and I said, I just got the gig. And he's like, are you kidding? He said, no. He's called me. He said, great. I said, what do I do? Like, there's no rehearsal. How am I gonna know the show? I mean, this is insane, right? And he says, okay, there's a live record. Go check out this live record. Learn that, and you'll be fine. So I learned the live record in 2 days. And then I was on stage with War, no rehearsal. I was really nervous because I was like, well, I hope the parts are the same, And I did well, and he says, cool, you're in the band. And I ended up playing with him for like a little over 6 years, I think, with the band. And again, toured all around the world with them. And, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Fredo, I want to talk about Las Lobos. I know we talk about Ozomatli. You work with Las Lobos as well, right?
Yeah. The history is kind of a crazy story, but my dad's been playing the records in my house since I was little. I think we've gone to see them perform a couple times, through my young age. But in the same high school, the punk band that played the talent show, Louis Perez's son, Louis, LP3, went to the same high school, and we met there too. And so I was, now that I befriended him and was hanging out and being at his house, I'd look on his wall and I'd see these like platinum plaques or gold record plaques. They say Los Lobos. I'm like, oh, my dad has those records. He's like, well, that's my dad. I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. But then so now I'm like kind of in the mix, and then he'd be like, oh, my dad's playing. So we'd go to their shows locally, right? So I've kind of been around them since I was 14, 15 years old. And seeing them progress in life and through all their successes, and probably like that was around the time the Kiko album came out and everything beyond that. But I was familiar with the music, but I mean, fast forward to now, like I ran into them in Seattle. I was on a different gig, and ran into Caesar and his daughters on the street of Seattle, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, we're playing tonight. So I went and sat in, and then
you had your instruments, so you just
I was just coming to hang out because I hadn't seen them, but by now that their family, they're second dads to me. They're my tios, my uncles, whatever. And was Marco from War, percussionist.
Yeah, Marcos Reyes.
Yeah, Marcos Reyes. He was playing congas with Los Lobos, and Bugs Gonzalez was on the drums. So I just came in to hang out, and that night, they're like, hey, Fredo's here, come in on a song. So I would always come in and sit in on congas, and that kind of rekindled our relationship. They're like, hey, what are you doing in a couple of days? I'm like, going home. They're like, come to San Francisco. We're doing Bill Graham's like anniversary, and we don't have Marcos is not coming. I'm like, all right, cool. So then that kind of started that ball rolling, and then pandemic hit, and then we had that year of nothing, and before that I was playing with this band Gogol Bordello for the past 5 years. Joined them in 2015. But after the pandemic, now the drummer had departed from the band and kind of left the seat open, and I got a call March of 21 to sit in with them, and I was getting ready to bring my congas and be percussionist guy, and they're like, no, the guys want you to bring your drums. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's a whole, for me, they're two different. The approaches are different. On percussion, I can be free and I don't really have to learn music. I do, but I can just express myself. Drums, I have to learn parts. I have to learn breaks. I have to learn where the song ends, starts, and so it was a whole different beast for me. But it was an exciting time, and my parents weren't around, but I thought of them too because they had exposed me to them, and and it was kind of a full circle thing. We're like, oh wow, I'm behind the drum set with these guys who are seasoned, accomplished musician, Grammy winners, and it's like, all right, so another learning experience for me. I think every band and every situation I've always entered has always been with good people, good musicians, and just like, and they're all different in their own way. And now I kind of asked them, I was like, hey, so what is this turning into? They're like, well, we know you have your commitments with the other band. I'm like, but you guys are working right now. So I need the work. They're like, well, yeah, come on in. And same thing, maybe we had like 2 rehearsals, but their catalog is long,
deep.
It's like deep, man. And they to this day, they're like, hey, so-and-so. And I'm like, no, but I go straight to YouTube. I listen to it. I'm like, all right, let's try it. But yeah, no, I've, to March. I mean, we started touring heavily in the late July and August of 2021, and man, it's already a year now, you know, and still going and still working, and they're going on celebrating their 50th anniversary next year. And you know, I think, you know, I kind of look at watching them as a young kid and going to their shows and listening to music as, you know, the preparation for that
classroom.
But they trusted me, you know, and I, you know, I don't know if I'm ever the right sound for the people that I work for, but it ends up being that how I process music and performing, and how I, you know, translate what I think their music should sound like with every group that I've played. It always ended up being like, oh, why don't you stick around? Like, okay, cool.
Nice. That means you've done a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm about to introduce my good friend and producer, Eric Kohler. But have you had the opportunity to play with any Jamaican legends? Or back any of them here in Southern California?
You, David?
No, David, but I'm asking you. I know
you're asking me? No, I don't
right. No.
I haven't, no.
Okay, well, that's my last question to you then. David, I know you have. What was that experience like, or the experiences? Because I think you've worked with quite a few of them, right?
Yeah. Well,
my memory served me in. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the first one was Rico.
Yes.
When Rico came, I played with him 2 times, I think. When he came to town. Eric put that show on. You guys put that show on, right? I believe. The Knitting Factory was the first one.
And then Pomona.
Yeah, and like that was an incredible experience because it was the same thing. Like all our other stories, mine and Fredo's. You know, I listened to Rico when I was in high school. You know, he's like on those specials records. You know, which was my first introduction to ska, and then listening to all his, you know, Reco and Reggae Land and all those songs that he had as a solo artist. You know, I was a big fan. And playing with Rico was a great experience, you know, great experience. And standing next to him in the section was really cool. I mean, it's something else when you listen to someone when you're a little, from the time you're really young, and then you get to play with that same person. You know, it's kind of surreal. It's like a mind-blowing experience. Like, I can't believe I'm standing next to this guy that I listened to for so many hours, you know, and yeah, it was really cool. And the other one, Leonard Dillon, also, you know. And I used to love the Ethiopians in high school. I mean, I was huge fan.
So have you outgrown them now?
I wouldn't say I've outgrown any of that music.
We gotta be careful. Word is language is powerful. Was the same in the past.
No, I'm saying, you know, during that time when I started listening to ska and I got into the traditional ska and the Jamaican sound, you know, they were one of my favorite groups. You know, all the songs, you know, like Hong Kong Flu, I used to love that song, and just, you know, I used to listen to them all the time because I used to like the grooves that they would put on the music, which was kind of different than the other sounds that were going on at that time, you know, and just the sound of that group and their harmonies and everything. So, you know, I still listen to ska and Jamaican music, you know, to this day, you know.
Yeah,
I listen to all kinds of styles. You know, I think I have a big connection to Caribbean music for some reason. You know, whether it's Jamaican, Cuban, you know, Puerto Rican. It's just like I love all that music from that whole area. You know, it's all connected. It's all connected.
Keep talking. Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's all connected. You know, they're like
yes.
They're like cousins.
Yes,
you know?
yes, and some instances brothers.
It's true.
Right, brothers, cousins, and it's
you know, as you mentioned, Rico, he was
Mother Africa,
Cuba.
You know?
Cuba, and his parents took him to Jamaica, produce and executive producer, the brain behind this.
Gentlemen, Fredo, David,
Eric,
great to see you both. I really enjoyed this and really appreciate you guys making the time here. I mean, really talk about 2 success stories and you 2 realizing your dreams, right? I mean, as far as, you know, whether it's playing with Los Lobos, right, Fredo, and you meeting them at a young age, you know, David, what you were talking about, also even with Rico to a lot of the Latin, you know, jazz artists that you've played with. So I mean, it's pretty amazing. Congratulations to you both on all the success, and hopefully you continue to find the love and joy and what you do there, which I'm sure you do. I think the first time I saw Yeska was one of the Steady Beat shows at Las Palmas Theater.
I miss those.
It's probably 94-ish or something like that. And it was
great shows.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, those are wild.
I if I'm not mistaken, because I've seen a flyer on social media not too long ago, but it was one show. It was you guys, right? Yeska, Jump with Joey, and I think Hepcat. If I'm not mistaken.
That was awesome.
I mean, just talk about the musicianship and showmanship, and just, I mean, three of the best to ever come out of this scene. I mean, not just here in LA, but anywhere around the world. It was incredible. And
I remember that show. I mean, because those were my two favorite bands.
Yeah.
Of the scene.
Yeah.
Jump with Joey. I used to look up to that band, because of their musicianship. I used to like their songs. I mean, I had all their records. And then Hepcat. I mean, everybody loved Hepcat.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with you if you didn't love Hepcat, right? Everybody loves Hepcat in the scene. They're like the top band. They're awesome. They had that sound. It was a great show.
Yeah, fully agree. And then I think the last time that we might have worked together on a show, a Yeska show, because David, obviously we worked together on Rico, but Junior, if you would scoot over, there we go. This show here. I'm gonna show.
When you bring the
I'm gonna bring it here. A little show and tell. Sorry for our listeners, but Reggae Nucleus magazine. It was our 6th anniversary concert, and this was in November of 2000. Joey Altruda All Stars. He had Ken Lazarus playing with him. I think he actually had Santa Davis played some drums at that show.
Yeah.
You guys, C Spot. Pretty amazing. So if this was in November of 2000, then it was one of your later shows, right? If you guys expanded some time in 2001. Yeah.
I don't think Fredo was in the band at that time already.
Okay.
Oh, that's your last Fredo. I don't care who you play with over the world.
That was pretty amazing. Yeah. So a few follow-up questions from a conversation with Junior, then a few additional ones. That Universal Amphitheater show. I actually worked at Universal Amphitheater, and I was not responsible for putting you guys on the.
We know who was. Okay. I had a big thing about it. Like, put us on the main stage. There was a cancellation, and they had a spot. I remember to this day.
So who was the headliner though inside? Do you remember? I'm curious because I'm wondering if I was there. Oh, Trulio.
I think it was Trulio.
They were on that bill, but there was a lot of other rock and Espanol acts.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, I must have missed that. I'm kicking myself.
It was called. But the thing is that I saw the poster of that show on social media a while back. It was the artist became more well known later on, and like that poster for the show is like a collective.
You mean the visual artist became more well known?
Yeah, they made a really cool poster for the show, and like that poster is like in a museum now.
Wow,
which is funny. It's
with
like
Yeska on it.
Yeah,
I have it inside.
Yeah,
you do? Okay.
Mine got lost over the years.
I'll have to look that up. Yeah,
it was called Big Top Locos was the name of the show, and it's like a picture of Zapata.
Was it Maria Fatal on there?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm writing this down. Big Top Locos. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure if you Googled it, it would probably come
up. Yeah, I will check that out. So Yeska released a couple of full-length albums, right? And then there was the single that you had on or the tune that you had on a Steady Beat compilation, and then you had the Greyhound, right? 45. Is that correct as far as released music?
Yeah, we had the 7-inch.
Yep.
Was our first like release as our own, and then I think before that we were on the Ska Authentic compilation.
Yep.
And we were also on some Moon Ska compilations.
Oh, okay.
That were different recordings. We were on. I'm trying to remember the name of it, because Moon Ska was putting out a lot of compilation.
Sure.
Son of Scarmageddon, I think it was called.
Okay. Yep.
And then I think we were on another one. Something hot something. I don't remember.
Okay.
We were on a couple of those. So those were all different releases.
Wow.
And then we did our solo record. Yeah.
Yes. I have that in my collection.
Greyhound.
A King Taco.
The taco place on Atlantic. We used to go there after rehearsals because there was 50-cent tacos.
Right, right, right.
And
Oh, that's great.
so yeah, and then we did the full-length record, Ska-Afro-Cuban Jazz, and then we did another full-length record called The Cover Up, which never got released in the U.S.
Okay.
Only in France.
Only in Europe, yeah. The label was on, its last dying legs, and we kind of saw that.
Right.
And we had original music, but we didn't want to give it to them because we knew the label was going to go under. So we did covers, and so we called it The Cover Up. And it was kind of funny because they didn't know we were doing this.
Right, right.
And they wanted someone else to produce, and we said, no, we got our own producer. And we ended up getting Aron Sarfati, a great drummer, to produce. And we did, all these covers as like Latin ska tunes, like some jazz standards. We did some Latin covers, but we did the Yeska style or Yeska treatment. So it sounded like us, but it was kind of like, okay, we're fulfilling our contract, so we can move on because you guys are going under. And they actually went under before it got released in the U.S.
Wow. And these are totally different songs that were on than the ones that were on the Ska-Afro-Cuban Jazz.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
A whole separate record.
A whole record. Like, I don't even have a copy. Fredo has a copy.
I have a friend. Well, through all my travels, I've learned. I've walked into restaurants hearing Yeska in Europe. There was one time, I don't know where I was, like in the Netherlands or something, and I walk in and I hear it. I was like, wait a minute, dude, are you serious?
That's really cool.
It turns out that a lot of these compilations were released in Latin America, and that other album was released in Europe. But a lot of the people that were paying attention to our music that we didn't even know that was happening, they've put them all on YouTube. So you can actually find those songs on YouTube and that's an album. But physical copies, like so I was gonna say, I had a friend. I was like, hey, you live in France. I'm like, can you order this? Because I can't seem to order it. He's like, yeah. How many do you want? I'm like, just a couple. He's like, I'll order all of them. And he ordered 10 of them and sent them to me. And I still have your copy, Dave.
Yeah.
I
would love to see one. I've never.
I was like, here's the physical copy of the cover up record that nobody had.
So it's CD.
It's a CD. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But we had a good time doing that record. I remember because Fredo came back from the Beastie Boys tour.
Yeah.
And we had rehearsed when Fredo wasn't even there, like learning. Like I did pretty much all the arrangements, I think, except for one. And we rehearsed all this music, and then Fredo came back from tour, and we had I think a week. And so we did a couple of rehearsals, and then we went into the studio and recorded that record.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think after that is when we went to Europe, and we did the Montreux Jazz Festival and all that kind of stuff. It was kind of a crazy, busy time, but we had. Same thing. I think we recorded it in 2 days. All together.
Right.
What 1 to 2 takes and bam, bam, next.
Yeah, if you mess up, that's what's going on the record. Don't mess up.
And what was it? How did you choose what songs to cover?
Some of the songs we were already playing.
Okay.
So it was kind of an easy pick, because like I was saying earlier, we played a lot of different kinds of shows, and we played some Latin jazz kind of shows. Like we would do the Latin Jazz Caravan, which was a thing put on by the jazz station in LA at that time called KLON, now called K-Jazz.
Oh yeah.
And so we were on some of those shows, so we had some more Latin jazz kind of songs that we would play on those kind of shows. So we did a Cachao song, Agosar Timbero, which was on a famous Discography, one of his Discography records, and I kind of rearranged it into a bigger, horns and stuff like that. And then we did Tintin Dale, which is a jazz standard, Dizzy Gillespie, John Oposo. And then we did what's another song we did? We did a George Benson tune called Eternally that the guitar players picked out. Joey Kraut, he picked out that song. So we were all kind of let's pick some songs that we really like and enjoy. Because on the first record, we did Cantaloupe Island, the Herbie Hancock song. And that came about because the record label. Yeah, well, Fried Neck Bones we did for the second record, the cover up. So that's actually on the cover up record, Fried Neck Bones.
Is it not? So it's not on Ska-Afro-Cuban?
No. It's on the second record. So I know it's floating around on YouTube. Sometimes you can see it, but that's not on Ska-Afro-Cuban Jazz. The only cover on Ska-Afro-Cuban Jazz is Cantaloupe Island. because the record label, we were actually like
You're right.
a couple of days before the studio, we went into the studio, the label called me and they said, you know, one of the guys who worked there was kind of impulsive. I'm just going to say that. He would get these ideas. Okay, you guys got to do a cover, you know, and he wanted us to do like a Herb Alpert tune. And we didn't want to do Herb Alpert because we never really listened to Herb Alpert. We said, you know, we don't connect with this. Why are we going to record this song? We have originals. Like, you signed us. You didn't sign Herb Alpert, right? He says, no, but it'll be recognizable, like a business thing. So we said, well, let us pick another tune. And, you know, Cantaloupe Island was kind of popular because there was the Us Three version. And we said, you know, people know this song. Let us do this. And so we did, you know, I kind of came up with some horn lines and we figured it out in rehearsal together. Like the night before we went to the studio, I remember still coming up with horn lines. And then we added some vocals on it that the percussionist came up with, Long John Oliva, who passed away. But he wasn't even supposed to be on the record. And, you know, Long John Oliva had played with big, great Latin jazz people. He had played with Dizzy Gillespie. He had played with, you know, Arturo Sandoval, and he was in his band touring for years. And, you know, he comes from a long line of rumberos in Cuba. His dad was a famous percussionist as well. And so I was playing with his band at the time, and the percussionist who was supposed to be on the Afro-Cuban jazz record, who had came to all the rehearsals, flaked. The first day of the session, didn't show up. He dropped off his congas, and then we don't know what happened to him.
Wow, that's crazy.
So we recorded the first day with no percussion, and then they were Long John was playing that night, and I was like, I can't make it because I'm recording with my band because I was playing, and so we said, listen, let's get Long John. I play in his band. He's playing tonight. So after we finished recording, we went to Luna Park, the club Luna Park in West Hollywood. He was playing, and we talked to him. I said, look, you got to help me out. Our percussionist flaked. We got to record, you know, like the next day or so. Like we have 1 day of recording or something, or 2 days. Can you help us? He's like, yeah, okay. He was like super cool guy. And he came in and just killed it.
Wow.
And he added a whole other dimension to the sound too, because
I'm sure
he was like the real deal. Like this guy is like, you know, he used to play with Bata Cumbele from Puerto Rico, which is another huge Latin jazz group. And so he added all these other rhythms and stuff that, you know, was kind of above our level at the time. And like, we're like, when we did Cantaloupe Island, we said, let's add like a vocal thing because they wanted vocals. You know, an instrumental band, and all of a sudden they wanted vocals, right? So he kind of came up with the little vocal part, and, you know.
Well, I'm telling you, you guys are the epitome of that appropriately titled Afro-Cuban jazz sound. And David, you know this, but I played a lot of the tracks off that when I had my radio show, the Havana Kingston Connection on KLO and K-Jazz. And, you know, I just couldn't get enough of that. And I guess to that point on the Havana Kingston Connection, I've always been fascinated about the connection between Cuba and Jamaican music. And David, you did a nice little video piece for us.
Brilliant.
Yeah, really fascinating. But so this question comes from my other partner in music, Sean, Rockery Sean. Because one thing that he and I have always wondered, and you guys touched on this a little bit earlier when you talked about the music that you listened to growing up, and then some of the more Latin and also jazz sounds from the guys that came from PCC. But do you think that are there similarities in the sound and rhythms that you heard and felt in traditional ska recordings to the music that you grew up listening to, maybe from your parents or grandparents, maybe some of the more Latin oriented sounds? Because we're wondering if there's a deeper connection to the traditional Jamaican ska because of the way that resonates from a familiar place, if that makes sense. So like, Fredo, you had said that you didn't know ska, right? Growing up.
Growing up, no. I mean, he's got the Bob Marley hat, and I remember the album Uprising in my house, like, you know, constantly, and I love that record. But I never made that actual connection up to what the different genres were until I listened to it or had to practice it you know, or I saw it, you know, at our talent show. I had never,
Right.
I was, you know, I had somebody had to give me the tape to even know about it, you know, and it wasn't until then they're like, oh, we're playing all this type of music, and then like now I was immersed in it and loving it, and like, yeah, for me, there's definitely a connection and to that style of music where it just felt it was a feel good type of thing, you know, and it just I think it made us all happy, you know, like so, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, did you also grow up listening to um, Latin rhythms, like in your
I
house?
did. Yeah, like on the weekends, my dad would play. Was it 88.9 or the KCRW? It was Alma del Barrio.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So it was like straight. It's like Saturday or Sunday morning. I forgot, but I just remember like I'd wake up to the smell of bacon and pancakes, and then I'd hear boom chicka boom chicka boom chicka boom. You know, I'd be waking up
Cakes
and
to
I'm like,
you,
oh,
right?
my
Right,
dad
yeah.
has a music on, but I naturally gravitated to it. You know, I didn't mind it. I didn't go like, what are you listening to? It was just like kind of like, oh, this is cool, you know. And I didn't, you know, I didn't grow up listening to the traditional, well, through my grandparents, traditional Mexican music and boleros and corridos and like, you know, but it was more the Caribbean and, you know,
Okay.
the whole like Afro Latin side of music that I was listening to more,
Right.
you know, on top of my dad playing rock and roll and Pete Townsend and the Beatles and
Right.
Lobos
Those logos, yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you know going to school, then I was getting the punk rock, and then I'm neighboring Compton, so I'm getting all the NWA records and
Oh, right.
hip
Yeah.
hop. So you know all that. I think all of us were absorbing all of that. All of us that lived in LA, you know, we were getting all those different things. But then when we were playing this style of music, you know, I think it took us all by surprise, where we were just like, wow, we love this, and we want to like keep creating this because it just felt natural, you know.
Yeah. David, what about you?
I, growing up, I listened to a lot of jazz because my grandfather was a huge jazz fan, and he was around in the Central Avenue days, and
Oh, wow.
he would tell me stories about
Wow.
going down and seeing Lester Young and Sarah Vaughan and all
Ernie
the
Andrews and yeah.
yeah, everybody who played down on Central Avenue, you know, and yeah, Ernie Andrews, I got to play with him uh, years back.
Yeah.
That was an awesome
Uh-huh.
experience.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, what a funny guy. And so yeah, so I listened to when I first started playing sax, I told him I'm going to play saxophone, and he was really happy, and he bought me like a Shoe Berry record and Coleman Hawkins. His favorite song was Body and Soul, from Coleman Hawkins. I used to listen to that, and Ellington, and all that traditional kind of jazz. And so when I started listening to ska music, it struck a chord because it's all that jazz influence from the
Sure.
Scatolites. Like,
Yeah.
I first started listening to the two-tone stuff, which I liked because, I was into like punk rock music for a while, and like that was close to that sound.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it was kind of an easy transition, but also since I played saxophone, I can really connect with the music. Like I can associate myself with it more because there was horns. And,
Yeah.
all the other music I was listening to when I was a kid, hip hop and any kind of dance music, whatever I was into before on my own, apart from what my family listened to, it didn't have horns in it. So
Interesting.
when I listened to ska, I was like, wow, I can connect with this
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Yeah.
I play saxophone,
Right.
because I wasn't playing jazz really outside of school. And then, my mom listened to basically like Black American music. That's what I grew up listening to: soul, R&B,
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff. So also like the connection listening to ska music, they were really influenced by all the soul artists and, all the American singers. So I would hear, some songs that, I recognized, but done as a ska version. And so it all kind of like touched all these points, all these musical points for me, like that I really got into. And, and then just LA, like the scene, like it was
Sure.
something I can kind of connect
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
When you're young, like you want to connect to something, and like being able to connect. And I was like playing this music, and I saw other bands playing, and, I liked the style of clothes, and it was just like a whole thing that I just really got into. I was able to connect with, and it kind of like became my identity for like quite a few years,
Yeah. Well, and that's actually a good segue to the next question is what's unique and special about the LA ska scene? Because it is unique, especially compared to a lot of other let's call it American, U.S., other cities?
Well, I think there was so many sounds that came out of LA because LA is such a diverse city and it's a big city and there's so many people from outside of LA that come to LA. So all these different sounds came out. Like there was like what we did was more like of the Afro-Cuban ska jazz sound, and then you had like the traditional sounds like hepcat, and then you had like Mobtown who had their own sound, then you would have like the more
Orange
traditional
County.
say like rocksteady groups, and like
Ocean
would do really good rocksteady stuff that no one else kind of played. That was kind of their thing. And like, I played in the Israelites for a while, and he kind of did that certain style of Jamaican ska too. And so there was all these different sounds. And what was great about LA is that there were a lot of places to play. And I think that Lewis, with Steady Beat, had a big part in the scene. I think if it wasn't for Lewis, I don't think all of these bands would have even had somewhere to play because he did so many shows.
Yeah.
There were so many shows. And then, he would do a show at a club. I remember this happened at the Alligator Lounge in Santa Monica, which is no longer there. He did a show at the Alligator Lounge. The owner said, wow, the club is packed. So then started doing shows, but without Lewis.
Right. Yeah.
But booking the same bands. And like we would play there like once a month. It was basically another ska show, but without Lewis involved.
Right.
And so other club owners started seeing that there was a scene and there was like a hunger and people were going out. So other clubs started booking the same bands, like Luna Park.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier was another place we used to play a lot.
Yeah, I saw you there, right?
Right. And Jumper Joey would play there. Mentor Brew from Bakersfield would play there.
Yep.
And it was a lot of places to play. So I think that all these bands had an outlet, and they were able to form their own sounds. And it was even, there was an Orange County influence, and then there was the Inland Empire. There was Spanky's out there, the Showcase Theater.
Right.
We played that a few times. So there were bands from outside of like LA proper that would come into LA and play also. So
Debonaires.
Right. Like it was the place, in my opinion, for ska. It was like the biggest scene. It was bigger than San Diego and, all the other neighboring big cities.
Yeah. Well, that's
it's the biggest in the country.
Yeah.
And then, LA bands would travel, like we did some touring, even within the Western US. So we would travel out of the city. Other Hepcat was going all over around the world. Like we were like exporting the sound that we had in town, and like musicians were going back and forth between bands. Sometimes some guys would play in more than one band. A guy would start in one band and then now he's playing Hepcat, and then another guy from this band is playing in this other band. So it's kind of became a community.
Yeah, and a family. Yeah. So to that front, Fredo, what does it mean to you to be involved and soon to be interviewed in the documentary Steady Beat film, talking about Lewis and Steady Beat?
I mean, it's pretty awesome because I think it's something that we are part of, that when you're involved in just doing it, you're not expecting it to be where we're at now, right? You're in the moment, you're doing what you're doing, you're gonna go play, and now we're talking about the history of it, and it feels great. It feels good to talk about it because it's we're all growing gray hairs now, so it's it's nice to see that be recognized, and to let people that had probably never caught wind of it be like, oh wow, there was a scene. We're like, yeah. And I mean, you look at LA now, it's like there's no scene of anything. There's places to play, but I mean, I'm so detached from it that I don't even know what's going on in LA. But I see little bars happening, but that time, playing with everybody and everything that Lewis did and put all these bands on. I mean, it was a community. I mean, like coming down to Gogol Bordello, like Oliver was in Ocean 11, and I used to watch him going like, man, that yellow Yamaha snare that he had sounds badass. And little did I know that I'd run into him in Brazil, and he's like, hey, I'm leaving this band. He should be the drummer. And this is like years later, It's like, so that family, that connection, like I knew him from that scene. On top of that, we were drummers, but I'm like, man, like we didn't have to grow up with each other. It was just
Yeah.
that scene,
it is pretty. That is pretty fascinating and amazing. And actually, that's another great segue. No lie to my next question here about Oliver. So much like Oliver, not only just because of the Gogol Bordello connection and obviously the connection to the ska scene, but both of you play various styles of music, right? I mean, we touched on the different bands that you were in. Is it difficult to transition into to is it difficult to be so talented? Fredo? No.
I mean, if you show your colors and people are like, "Oh, you can do that," they're going to expect you to do that. So you gotta back it up, And my experience with Yeska was learning all this style of music. So now I had that under my belt. I had the Villains. That was the punk rock side. And then some of us went to Ozomatli and that was also a mixture. But seeing somebody play tablas and have a DJ in your band, and then I'm incorporating.
But you had some hip hop experience with the Beastie Boys.
And then the Beastie Boys. So it's like, all the bands I ended up playing for kind of had all this mixture.
Yeah.
And now Gogol Bordello is like a big, example where they'll be like 4 bars of ska, one drop or whatever, and then it'll go into punk rock, and then it'll go back into the Gogol Bordello thing. It's like, and I just had that sense. I've always had a sense of like, okay, this is how it goes. This is how I think it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
And feeling it and knowing it, and everybody's like, oh yeah, Fredo can do it. I'm like, okay, and I go in going like, yeah, I'll try it. Like hope it comes out right.
How many years did you play with Gogol?
So that was 5 years.
5 years.
5 years, and then we kind of we were slowing down at the end of 2019. Last show was in Mexico, December of 2019.
Yeah.
And then we were gonna commence in like what it was like April or May, and that's when everything kind of shut down.
Yeah. And now Corey, right? And
now Corey's in the mix.
Corey Kingston's playing with them.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Oliver, Fredo, and Corey. Yeah, I mean,
and me and Corey were jamming, and David too. We're in Western Standard Time.
Right.
So we were kind of all around
Not
each other.
Corey left music.
No. Corey keeps active. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'll let him tell you the story, but I think Corey was already talking to Eugene about Gogol Bordello before I came into the picture.
Okay.
And then when I went and met them in Brazil and saw Oliver and then I guess whatever things changed, but so like, hey Corey, the gig's open. He's like, yeah, all right. And all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm doing it. I was like, all right, cool. And he's a perfect fit, man, because he's another drummer who knows a lot of those styles. He can go jazz, he can go punk rock, he can go do some
stuff. But I'm embarrassed. I've never heard of that band Gogol Bordello.
That's all right. Well, I'll take you to the next time. Play out.
What style?
A wild style.
No, they call it gypsy punk, but I mean, we even incorporate some cumbia and some Latin, and everybody in the band is from somewhere. The bass player from Ethiopia, the percussionist from Ecuador. There was a singer and dancer in the band. She was Chinese, but from Scotland. It was like a multicultural band, like Ozomatli. It's like
a real nice spectacle to see live. Yeah. Here's a question for both of you from fellow musician Matt Munoz of Mentoburu, who you mentioned. What are some lessons that you've learned from the bands outside of Yeska that you played with, right? So David, whether it's Poncho Sanchez or War, what are some lessons that you'd like to share from learning or that you've learned, from playing along the way here?
I think the biggest one is to just always be ready, because you never know what's going to happen. Like musically, be on top of your game, on your instrument, because whenever I got big breaks in my career, it was always just a phone call. It wasn't like, oh, in 3 months you're going to play, or we want you to play. It was like, hey, 2 days from now,
be ready.
Stage. Yeah, so I think being ready and, as a musician, always practicing and being on top of your game is kind of where it's at. And back when we were what you guys were talking about earlier, and being in LA again, I think it's part of, if you're a professional musician in LA, you kind of have to be able to play a bunch of different styles, because there's so many scenes in LA and there's so many different bands, and to work as a musician, you got to be open to a lot of different styles
Sure.
and to a lot of different people
Yeah.
and cultures and musics.
Mhm.
So, it kind of comes with the territory. But I think that was probably one of my biggest lessons, is to be ready and to be open-minded.
Being open
Yeah.
is the main lesson. Like, you can't be, I only do this style, especially like Dave's saying, if you're getting into it to be a musician and to kind of, be a pro at it, then you need to know as much as you can. And I was gonna throw in, it's like I never said no to an opportunity, and even if I didn't think I could do it, I still
Right.
said yes, and I put myself to the test. And if I passed, I passed. If I didn't, then on to the next thing, because those are the biggest lessons, and this whole thing where it's just like,
Yeah.
put yourself to the test,
Yeah, you have to put yourself out there, because you don't know if you're ready until you try it. Really.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, no one's ever really ready. If you're trying to wait till you're ready to do something,
Never
you're not
really-
going to be ready. You're never going to do it, right? I mean, so
yeah. And then life will pass you by.
yeah, you just kind of have to say, well, this is where I am right now, and I'm going to go for it. And if I make it, okay. If I don't, well, I know what to work on.
Yeah.
And like being able to play under like musicians who are a lot older than me and a lot more experienced taught me like a lot of lessons on, how to play on stage, how to deal with certain things when you're traveling on the road. I'm sure Fredo's been in a lot of situations. They always say like playing is the easy part, music is the easy part. All the other stuff that comes around playing is the hard part.
Yeah.
Dealing with all that other stuff, whether it's the business or traveling.
Yeah. Other distractions, other
Yeah.
pressure,
Personalities.
Personalities.
Because you're now you gotta you gotta be brothers with the person sitting next to you, and if you're not, then that makes it difficult on you, of course, in any family situation, but especially with music, it's like you become like, everybody kind of says it, but yeah, you do become like a family, because you're there. If you're touring, you're there every day.
Right.
You're seeing the same people. You're sitting next to them in a van, or
Right.
you're sleeping under the bunk, and the guy's on top of you. But the difference is like say Yeska, we kind of chose who was in the band. Like, let's try this person. Oh,
Right.
he didn't work. Let's try this person. Okay, they work. But in those other situations, you don't choose. They call you. Do you want to do this gig? Okay, then you don't choose who else is on the band. They're already there.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to adjust yourself to make it work within the situation that you're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people can be from way different backgrounds than you. There's an age thing. Fredo's plays with older musicians with Los Lobos now. When I was in war, a lot of I'd say everybody was a lot older than me. Even though I wasn't that young per se, but I was like the young guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And like I was like the kid in a way, but but you also learn from that. You're playing. I used to play with percussionist Francisco Agoya till he passed away, and he was in, I think it was 91 when he passed away. And so when you play with another thing playing with older musicians is they have all this history behind them, and like these lessons that you learn from these guys, because they were doing it before I was born. And if they tell you, hey, you should do this, then like we were saying, you got to be open to hearing that criticism, or
Absolutely.
don't do that. Okay, so you try not to do it. Obviously with time some things change, right? And you have to be yourself too, but it's one of those things where you can learn from all these other people that you're around.
Yeah. David, talking about youth, you teach, right? You talk about, didn't you recently start a youth music center?
I did. I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
I did it for I think it was about 2 years during the time I was in war, actually. But it was kind of difficult to keep things going, because my schedule was changing so much that it was just something I kind of had to stop doing. I mean, I started teaching when I was in college. I was like a teacher assistant, and then I taught for a short time, like almost a full year, and then I stopped. I got the Poncho Sanchez gig. Like, he called me, and then I was like, I'm out. And I quit. But I had like was a substitute teacher for a little bit when I got out of school, part-time. So I was always into education, and even now once in a while I have some private students, not so much anymore,
Right.
but for a long time I did that, you know, and yeah, so I've always kind of been interested in education and passing down information and helping other up and coming musicians, and because people did that with me.
Of course.
I had some older guys that took me under their wing and said, hey, you know, taught me stuff. I would ask them questions. They would, you know, I'm still playing with some people that are that way with me. Very open,
forward. Well, Junior joked about this earlier, but it's actually a valid question. Is so are the youth seeing the importance of playing real instruments? This is a general question, but I mean, but what do you guys think as far as we talked about this? Was it with Aton or with Ted or
we talk about it with everyone?
Well, yeah, I'm just curious from your opinion.
Those two.
Yeah.
I mean, recently we played at Citrus Clouds with Los Lobos and the high school band. I mean, they were all, it was at least like a 40-piece mariachi group.
Wow.
You know,
amazing.
And there was like, you know, 3 or 4 guitarron players and boys and girls, and I'm like, oh man, these guys are handling it. Like, there's no,
that's encouraging.
That's a very,
you know, and they're seeing us play, you know, and they're, you know, it was a big break for them, you know, but it was like really awesome to see that, and which told me, and I'm like, okay, you know, education and the thought of, you know, doing that for, you know, for the passion of it, and maybe even for a living, you know, because I don't think any of us thought, you know, we went to school, like, you know, like Dave said, like to come out of there with, you know, I was supposed to be a metallurgist. I was gonna pull metal and find its tensile strength, you know, for $20 an hour, you know. But instead, I wanted to
never too late.
Never too late. Yeah. I kind of related. I was like,
nothing is wrong with that.
I can make symbols. I can make symbols, right? Because I work in metals, and
there you go. Right.
It's all relative, you know. But it's like, you know, seeing that, and you know, and a lot of the groups that are coming out of East Los and like Tropa Mágica and the Sinceres that are doing like old school, like oldie style, you know, LA music, and they're pushing on, man. It sounds really good. It sounds authentic, and you know, I don't think I'm hearing. I mean, this is not tooting Yeska's horn, but like the creation that we did, like I don't see anybody morphing. They're kind of doing like really like they're keeping it pure, you know, to whatever style they're playing. You know? But then again, it's like they're still, you know, they're refining their musicianship, and you know, a lot of those guys have come up to me, you know, for advice, and we're like, man, you tour all over the world, and
of course,
you know, it's like I remember asking Danny Carey from Tool, because he used to go to the YMCA where I was a desk attendant, and my dad was like, why don't you ask when, you know, you're the famous guys what you need to do on tour, because you're going with the Beastie Boys, you know, you got to be professional. And so I asked him, I was like, hey, so, you know, I'm going on tour with the Beastie Boys, you know, like, got any advice? He's like, yeah, eat really good and get lots of sleep. And I'm like, that's it?
Very sound advice.
You got anything exciting to tell me? You know, but he was right. He was right.
That's where it's at. Sleep.
He's absolutely right.
Being able to make it through.
Yeah.
And play the show.
That's true. Yeah.
As far as that, like with the youth, I think the difference now is that when I was young, there was school music programs in a lot of schools. You know, that's how I was able to play sax, is because the school lent me a saxophone. Otherwise, I would not have been able to afford a saxophone. Like I didn't get a saxophone until like I was in college. That was my own, you know, when I graduated. So, you know, having that opportunity that there's a school program where you can get an instrument and you can learn is a huge thing. And over the years, they've kind of taken those programs out of the schools little by little, and what's left is like a lot less than say what was there before.
Yeah, that makes,
you know, because with budget cuts and whatnot, you know. So I always say though, like if someone is an artist, they're gonna make art with whatever medium they have. So, you know, whether it's with instruments like we made music with, and still do, or if it's with a computer and you know, they're programming stuff and doing electronic music, because they're going to do that because that's what's available to them, right? And that's what they have access to. Yeah. And that's what's easiest.
Right.
You know, for me, it was sax because I got it from the school. So that's kind of what I did, right? Yeah. But when I was young, I think like around 13, I wanted to be a DJ. Like I was like in this party crew, and I would like take records, and the guy would let me spin and stuff, and like I was into that, but there was no way I could afford all that equipment to be like a DJ, you know? And so I was just like, well, whatever. When I got into high school, I just didn't even think about it anymore. And then, but back to my original point is if you have access to something, that's what you're going to do. So everybody, now you get laptops from your school. You can make music on a laptop really easy now, which didn't exist when we were doing it. To record, we used to have to go to a studio.
Right.
And it was like this threshold, you know? So you had to be good enough to be able to record in the studio before you even recorded.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then even there was that other threshold of like, okay, if you want to put out your music, it wasn't like self releases back then. Like someone had to believe in you and say, hey, we like this band or this artist and we're going to put your music out. But now that threshold doesn't exist. You know, if I want to put something out on my own and say I'm 18, I can record it at my house, go on a computer, upload it, and it's out everywhere.
Yeah, true.
Which, you know, I think in some ways it's great. It's awesome, but in other ways maybe not so much because I think sometimes artists come out before they're developed. I think there needs to be more development. Like what we had as a band, I think was special in the sense that we had so much development time before we even recorded something that came out, because we had already played together for years and had tons of shows and live shows and tons of mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. Like there's been some videos that have surfaced from us back in the day, like I don't know, like 94, 95, and I've watched them and I'm like, wow. I'm glad there's not more.
Right.
You know, because those are just gone, right? But now everything is recorded on a phone and
oh man,
everything's documented, right? So I think there's a big difference in the way musicians are coming up now than the way we came up. I think it's in some ways it's harder now because everything you do is documented. Like I made tons of mistakes and sounded horrible, but no one can hear it now because there's no record of it. Right? And then some video surfaces, I'm like, oh wow, okay. But I mean, that's where I was a kid, but whatever.
Of course.
But you know, but now it's like everything is documented, everything is being recorded, everything is being put out. So I think there's a big difference in the way youth deals with music and instruments and the way we did.
Yeah.
You know, we're
and now maybe
generation ahead.
how they conduct themselves on stage.
Right. That too.
Now you can see yourself, you know. I mean, like now after every show, I'm looking at who posted what just to kind of hear what it sounded like, you know. And then sometimes I like catch myself like, no, I don't want to hear it because I know I messed up. And
well, I'm gonna send you a video that I took when I saw you at the Greek Theater with Lobos.
There you go.
I'll text it to you. So on that note, any parting words, any new projects, anything that we did not touch on that either of you want to share before we call it a night? Fredo, we'll start with you.
I mean, I'm always I did my own solo thing called Bongoloids, and I put out a record in 2014 just because my dad wanted me to, you know, and he was like, you should put out a record. So I wrote my own, but I'm kind of always working on that. I'm waiting for the moment to like Dave was talking about, I could be putting out singles or whatever, songs, ideas, whatever, and build the catalog, you know, but that's one thing. You know, I have another group, East LA Taiko, with my friend Maceo Hernandez, where we mix Japanese drumming with Latin rhythms again here, you know.
Well, that's cool.
Two different. He's not Japanese, but he went to Japan and studied the drum when he was a teenager, you know, and lived there for 4 or 5 years. And there's a documentary on him. But you know, we're melting those two cultures together, you know. And then Rough Church is another band I play here locally in LA with my friend Greg Franco and Caitlin Wolfberg and our old friend Dante Pascuzzo, and we're constantly recording and putting out records.
Very cool.
On Nocturnal Soul, I think is the record label, and then Los Lobos, man. Los Lobos got me busy. It's a trip, you know, not being able to work. It was nice being home, you know, but then, you know, I went through the reality of like, okay, well, music had been most of my life, you know, and I've never really had to find that backup, you know. It's always been consistent, but then the reality came. We're like, oh wow, like I really need, at the age I'm 46 now, and I'm just like, oh, how long can I do this for? You know, and like, you know, I feel my limbs, I feel the back, and
Yeah.
you know, luckily, you know, there's nothing seriously hindering my ability to do what I do. You know, and now with seeing Los Lobos and watching them do their thing, I mean, those guys, you know, they're not young. You know, they're going to celebrate 50 years as a band next year.
We'll talk about consistently good, man. Those guys just
and they still shred, they still
They really
rock.
do.
You know, it's like, you know, so that's, you know, I'm grateful and thankful that I get the opportunity to continue to play, and especially with my heroes. You know, it's like,
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And listeners and viewers can find you on Instagram, right?
I'm on Instagram under Fredo Ortiz, also Bongoloids, Bongoloidz. I did I'm still kind of building all my content, but there's a Fredo Ortiz music YouTube channel that I
Great.
a couple of interviews and some videos here and there, and Facebook as well, Fredo Ortiz.
Okay.
And FredoOrtiz.com.
There you go.
I finally I had a website before and I was like, I need another one. Do I? I did it. So yeah, FredoOrtiz.com. There's a lot of videos on there. Beastie Boys, old 1996 videos and stuff we did at festivals. And,
I'll check that out. Yeah.
for sure.
And David, parting words.
Just that, you know, I still love Jamaican music to this day, and the ska scene was a big part of who I am to this day, and helped me become who I eventually became as a musician, as a person. You know, I met my wife through the ska scene. I mean,
Nice. Okay.
you know, so I mean, it's a big part of my life, and you know, I always love it and treasure it. You know, splash.
Yeah, Lloyd Nibs.
Yeah, Lloyd Nibs.
Yeah, and
that
you
was
know,
weird.
I do a lot of recording
I
still with other people. I've been doing a bunch of TV stuff lately, you know, kind of in that scene, and yeah, I'm on social media. David Urquidi Sax is my handle on whatever I'm on, and my website davidurquidi.com, and it says some of the stuff I've done and where you can hear me at, and as far as like Jamaican music in during the pandemic time, you know, everyone stopped, as you know, and I was kind of like, well, what do I do musically? And I kind of started revisiting a bunch of old music that I had like on my hard drive, and you know, over the years I always write music. You know, I have an idea, I write it, I record it, and it just stays on my hard drive. And I had all these tunes that I built up over the years. I started going through that, and I said, well, that's kind of led me to the point where I am now, where I want to start releasing some of this stuff and recording stuff that I wrote. I'm like, well, I have all this music that I never did anything with. You know, that I just have this idea. I was in my car one day or wherever, I'll record it on my phone and come home and record it. And, you know, so I actually got into a bunch of like dub reggae stuff.
Oh, nice.
You know, and I recorded a bunch of stuff here at my house by myself because it was something I could do, you know, especially with technology now, you know. So maybe I'll release that one of these days. I probably should, you know, and eventually do some like that jazz stuff on my own, which I used to do on my own after Yeska for a short time. I had my own group and stuff, and I was working around town, and then started touring, and I kind of stopped that. But, you know, getting back to that stuff, and, you know, hopefully some stuff will be coming out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and congratulations again to you both, and thank you for Yeska, a band that has always meant so much to me, and again, that, you know, you really capture that amazing combination of styles that I love so much. So, you know, we appreciate you making the time here, Junior.
Yeah, David and Fredo, the pride and joy of Los Angeles, man. People are proud of you guys. They may not have, you know, had the opportunity to express it to you, but they really and truly.
Yes.
Yeah, people proud of you. Yeah,
Thank you for having us, man.
Thanks for having us out.
No, not just, I mean, people in general are proud of you guys for your accomplishment.
No, for sure. You know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I talked to a lot of people that, you know, even that were influenced. I mean, there was a drummer right now that, you know, they used to watch and listen to Yeska, and I was a drumming influence on him, Gil Sharon, you know, and he's you know, and he's out with Jerry Cantrell right now, but he's played with Marilyn Manson and put out his own like reggae and dub like drum videos, you know. But he would always come up to me and be like, yo man, Yeska. He was just all about Yeska. I was like,
yeah, we saw him early February. He played with Long Beach Dub All Stars.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. Sounded great.
Great guy.
So it's like,
All right,
I
Junior.
guess we reach our destination,
have.
I guess. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thanks again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
And please follow us at History of LA Ska on Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and join our Facebook group. Please follow me at Junor Francis. This series is produced by a good friend here, Eric Kohler, for the Rockery Radio. We want to thanks to everyone who take time out to watch and to listen. Some people are only able to watch, so thanks for listening and watching. And follow us on Instagram account, your account.
Yes, at a History of LA Ska or at Rockery_radio. And Junior, thank you as always for
thank you
another amazing session. David and Fredo, be good. Take care of yourselves. And thanks again, everyone. And really appreciate everyone watching and listening and all the support over the years as well. So.
And you guys are the pride and joy of the life.
We're going to end on that. All right, guys. Take care.
All right.
All right. See ya.
Thanks.
Bye.